The following answers will be solely your expressed opinion and will be used as part of a public website and/or blog. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed for this oral history project. Let's begin this interview. Hi, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Can you please state your name?
I'm Barbara Sweetwood.
Barbara, can you tell me how old you are, please?
Yes, I'm 75.
And where are you from?
Ronceverte, West Virginia.
And how long have you lived here?
75 years.
That's great. Barbara, as a long-term resident of Ronceverte, West Virginia, how do you personally feel that the town and community has changed over the last 50 years?
Actually, I believe we've gotten smaller. Our businesses have gone out, a lot of them, because a lot of the owners have passed away, and the railroad has stopped stopping here. It's just the sign of the times, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that the town's changes have had a positive, negative, or neutral effect, and why?
I think negative, because we don't have people traveling through to stop for our businesses and so forth. And I think it's just, and like I said, that the trains have stopped stopping here, and it's just very different.
So in the 75 years that you have lived here, and you're talking about the train stopping, what's one of your favorite memories maybe of, seeing people coming into the town or being downtown when you were younger? What was something that you really enjoyed doing then?
I've thought about this a good deal.
Uh-huh.
On Saturday night, the farmers and people would come in town, and they would go to the feed store and get their feed for their animals or whatever they needed at the feed store. Then go to our local Kroger, which was down here in town, and they'd get their groceries, and they'd park on the street and talk to their neighbors and talk to, just a good feeling about being in town and seeing everybody. And we look forward to seeing them on Saturday night. Of course, our stores stayed open, our grocery stores, our pharmacies, and things like that.
What was your favorite store downtown growing up? Or in the whole 75 years you've lived here, what was your favorite store that you remember being in Ronceverte?
Oh, dear. They were all my favorites.
You liked them all?
Yes, I did. I really did. We lived where our First National Bank drive-in is now, was a hotel apartment building. And my family and I lived there. And you could see everything. And one of the most depressing things, I think, and my mother took me to the window to see after the Second World War, was the bodies coming in and unloading in Ronceverte with flags on them, draped on them, and then they would load another train and take them up to Greenbrier at that time. But my aunt and uncle would come in from Cincinnati. They'd get on the train and ride all night and get off about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we would go meet them and, things like that. It was really very good.
Well, those are exciting. Yeah, it's exciting times.
But I loved all the stores and the people who ran them, and they were mom and pop stores at that time, so to speak, whatever you perceive mom and pop to be. And it was just very good. I just loved the town.
So when you were little, Barbara, and you said that you lived downtown, well, how did you get around town? Did you walk? Did you ride a bicycle? How did you get around when you were younger in the downtown area?
Well, primarily we walked. And I was about 4 or 5 when we moved from the downtown up to West Main. And then around the block, I had a scooter and roller skates. So I would skate all around town and run off and go visit the other kids in the neighborhood.
Did they skate with you too?
No, I was the only one on the block.
Well, you're like a fashion leader there.
In that area. But then behind us on Greenbrier Avenue, I had people who skated with me. And we played hopscotch on the sidewalks. Drew our own blocks and things like that. But We did not have an automobile
Mm-hmm.
until I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I went working, and we got my mother and I
Mm-hmm.
got a car. So.
Well, hey, you were eco-friendly even back then. Yeah.
And we would walk from here when I was in my teen years to my grandmother, who lived on River Avenue, and that's like 3 streets over and a couple of blocks down. So, and we met people in the summertime, particularly. People would be on their porches, and we knew everybody on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother would stop and talk, and if the kids were in the yard, or the grandkids, I would stop and talk to them. And people weren't inside with their air conditioners on or their TVs on or anything, like I'm sure they are now. You just don't see people sitting out. And it was a real friendly time, and nobody was afraid. That's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
We knew everybody knew us.
Mm-hmm.
They looked after us. And indeed, it does take a village to raise a child.
I like that, Barbara. So, Barbara, since you've been here for 75 years, why do you believe that you have remained in Ronceverte, West Virginia for the extent of your lifetime?
Quite frankly, I don't know. This was where I was planted,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I bloomed where I was planted.
Mm-hmm.
Because my husband and I lived with Mother for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
here not in this house, but in like a 4-room house. And then we built this one. And he passed away, and I was working, and the children were in school, and it was just a place to be. And I was familiar with it, and there was no reason for me to move if I hadn't had a job and relatives in the area and so forth that may have been. But
Mm-hmm.
I was comfortable here.
Is that, what types of things do you think then attracted you to remain here? I know you said, your family and this is kind of where you were planted, but is there anything that you can think of that really, that maybe even that isn't downtown anymore or anything that really attracted you to want to stay in this town?
Well, as I said, it was safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got involved in organizations and things in church here. So it was just, I had no interest in going anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly wanted to travel a little, and I haven't been very many places. But I still feel comfortable here.
Mm-hmm.
And since I haven't been too well, my church family has been so supportive, and my friends here have, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a good place to be.
That's great, Barbara. Barbara, can you please share a memory that you have growing up in Ronceverte, West Virginia?
Oh, dear. There are so many.
Well, what's one of maybe your favorite or a funny memory or something that, kind of stands out in your mind that is sort of amusing or just a sweet, pleasant memory?
Well, the owner of Burkholder and Green, Mr. Billy Burkholder, I was just a little kid, and I would throw a fit, and the windows would be up in the summertime, and he would come across the street, holler up and say, "What's wrong with my little darling?" Mother would tell me that story. "Send her downstairs, Uncle Billy has something for her." And Mother said, "She's just throwing a fit." It's just things like that, that people do. And one thing with my children, not particularly me growing up here, but my oldest son walked to elementary school. Well, we all did, but he didn't, and he's 52 now. Mm-hmm. He won't appreciate that. But, anyway, one day he started, I sent him to school. It was in the wintertime, and he had on his snowsuit. And the bank president's wife lived a couple of streets down. And she called me and she said, I brought Chris in. He was crying out on the sidewalk. He had to go to the restroom. So she said, I brought him in and undressed him, let him go, and then set him on his floor. And you don't find that in very many places, or you would not dare let that happen. You wouldn't dare let your kids walk that far.
Yeah, to school.
And just, sweet things like that have happened to us. And it's just been just a pleasure and a wonderful, meaningful life, I think.
Barbara, can you share a recent memory that you have here from Ronceverte? Because I know you're involved in a lot of different organizations, and I mean, you've made a big difference in this community. So what is a recent memory that you have that's a pleasant memory of today's Ronceverte?
Well, the fact that we're trying to rebuild, so to speak, and make improvements and get businesses here. And I've tried to do whatever I could in that way. And when I retire, it'll be 8 years, the 31st of this month.
There you go.
August. I went to City Hall and I went to Arabeth Development Corporation. And I said, I'm ready to volunteer. What do you want me to do? I want to do something. So City Hall had me do some things for them at the courthouse. And then Arabeth Development had me in the cable people. So that's what I got involved with after I retired. Of course, before I did that, I could not do a lot of stuff except at night go to church meetings and club meetings and things like that.
Barbara, why do you volunteer? What is something that, what do you feel like as a volunteer?
I feel like I'm giving back because this town, I feel, has given a lot to me, not material things, but just to be here. And that's why I want to do it, so I can give back.
What's one of your favorite volunteer memories over the years? Because I know, like you said, you've been a volunteer for several years. What's one of your favorite events maybe that you volunteer on, or a favorite, memory that you have from serving your time as a volunteer in this community?
Well, I was president of the Ronceverte Women's Club for 3 2-year terms, not consecutively, but just different times. And I was chairman of our Pearl Buck project. Now, Hillsboro, West Virginia is Pearl Buck birthplace. So I was chairman of that committee. And I was at the Greenbrier Hotel and spoke to several hundred Women's Club members about Pearl Buck. And she was there one year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got to meet her. And that was a good thing. But just whatever I do, if I feel like I'm doing a good job, it makes me feel good.
And you are. I mean, you've helped this community in lots of different ways with your time. And so, communities, small communities especially, need volunteer groups. And, and that's great that you've been able to serve.
Well, and behind me on the table is a certificate from the governor that I got when I was recently in the hospital. And it was a certificate of my volunteerism with the Main Street program.
Oh, wow, Barbara.
In Ronceverte. So that was nice to be in the hospital and have that handed to you.
That's right. Because you've done a lot, Barbara.
There have been a lot of people, though, who have done a lot of things. And I don't mean to be...
No, I mean, this whole... Yeah, this...
Everybody does a lot of stuff.
And it takes, like you said, even a whole village to raise a child. It takes a whole bunch of volunteers to help, keep small communities going. So thank you for helping with all that stuff, Barbara.
Well, I said... Ronceverte isn't as good as it was, but it's going to be better than it is. I'd like to have that as our motto. But that's what I feel. Whatever the times, the sign of the time is, and I know you can't have 50 years ago now because it's just not possible. But we need to have be positive about what we can do and get out there and work on it. I've washed windows and swept the streets.
Yeah.
Done a lot of things. But now I'm not really able to do that. I can do anything on the phone or sitting at the dining room table, but I can't do much about running around anymore.
That sort of leads me to my last question for you. What are if you say in 5 years, what do you hope that Ronceverte has become, or what kind of steps do you hope that Ronceverte has taken?
Well, I would like some positive thinking about the businesses. And I know we live close to the river, and I know that flooding is always a problem. And there are some plans there to take care of some of that stuff. And if we could just get that together. And then we have a movie theater that's very old. And the depot, the train depot, I hope to see that given to the city, and then we can do something with that, maybe a museum. We have a lot of history, and we need a museum to display it so people can see.
I agree.
I don't know. I think we just all need to get together and put our backs to it. Get on with it.
I like that, Barbara. So my very last thing that I will ask you is, what advice do you have for the next generation of Ronceverte? Or do you have any words of wisdom to share, or any types of anything that you would like to pass on kind of as your legacy to this community?
Well, I just like for the younger people, and anybody younger than 7, to know that it's necessary to give back. Whatever you perceive that you need to give back for. Not everybody is going to say, well, I need to do this or this or this. But whatever you can do to make it a better place for the children, for the teenagers, for the old folks, for anything like that, just do what you want to do, as long as it's positive and it helps the community.
Well, thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate you sharing your stories and experiences with me, and I hope your wishes for Ronceverte come true.
So do I. Thank you very much for having me.